We all make mistakes in life, and making mistakes when learning and speaking Chinese is no exception. I decided to ask 4 Chinese teachers what they thought the biggest or the most common mistake that Chinese learners make. I then took all of their answers and put it into this video so you guys can benefit from their advice too. These 4 Chinese teachers also have great YouTube channels, so if you like their style and their advice, go check them out and tell them I sent you. Their links to the channels will be in the description below. First we have Gloria from Dope Chinese. She's a teacher who can speak both Mandarin and Cantonese, and she likes to focus on the slang and colloquial words in Chinese.
Hello guys, I'm Gloria from the channel of Dope Chinese with Gloria. I teach kids and adult Chinese at school and online. The most common mistake that Mandarin beginner will make is the negative words 不 and 没. They are struggle when to use 不 and 没有, as they both have the negative meanings. Mostly, 不 negates in the present and future tense, while 没有 negates in the past tense. Say, I didn't finish my homework. 我没有写作业. But my students keep saying that 我不写作业, which make me so sad. Besides, the word orders of adverbials is another confusion for them. The adverbials is the groups of verbs that describe sentence or verbs, like adverbs of times, place, and manner. In English, this can often go at the end of the sentence. For example, I had a meeting at school yesterday. At school yesterday is an adverbial. But in Mandarin, this information has to go before the verb. For example, 我昨天在学校开会. Please forget English grammar that put this information at the end of the sentence when you're trying to learn Chinese well, because it sounds a little bit weird and confusing.
The 不 and the 没有 is a common mistake that even I sometimes still trip up on, and the wrong order of the sentence structure is something I hear even from people who've been learning Chinese for a long time. For these 2 reasons, this is why input is so key. You will start to learn the rules of Chinese without memorization. It becomes more of a natural reaction rather than a word-for-word translation in your head, which often results in bad Chinese. Next we have Cantonese with Brittany. She's a Canadian Chinese teacher with a Cantonese heritage, and although her channel focuses mainly on Cantonese, her advice can actually apply to any language.
Hi everyone, I'm Brittany from Cantonese with Brittany. I make beginner and intermediate videos for Cantonese learners. I created my channel to help maintain the Cantonese language and culture in the overseas community, but my videos are suited for anyone interested in learning conversational Cantonese. I'd say the first mistake people learning Cantonese make is not being consistent. A lot of learners start off really strong. They study for hours a day, but then after a few weeks they just give up. It's much better to work on your Cantonese a little bit every day. Learning a language is a marathon, not a sprint. I think the best thing you can do is make learning Cantonese a daily habit. For example, when I'm getting ready in the morning, I like to put on a Cantonese podcast. That way I have a little bit of contact with the language every day. The second mistake that I see learners make is something that ties into the first mistake. It's not making fun a priority. You need to find content that you find interesting. It's hard to do something every day if you don't enjoy it. Very few people have the willpower to read a dictionary every day. You need to find content that you want to watch, that you want to consume. This doesn't mean that there's no place for grammar books or flashcards, but it's really, really important that you're always having fun along the way. I think if you avoid making these 2 mistakes, you'll make a lot more progress in the long run.
I very much agree with the 2 things that Brittany said here. Consistency is key, and consistency comes from having fun. I've seen many language learners who said they're going to learn this language or that language, and they buy the textbooks and they download the app, and when I check in with them a month later, they didn't touch any of it after the first week. There are some days where I just don't feel like learning, but there's still ways that you can keep on top of it, whether you just do your flashcards or watch a TV show in Chinese or just listen to a song. Anything is like better than nothing. The next Chinese teacher is Xiaolu. Her channel is really interesting because she will analyze Chinese from foreigners who speak pretty good Chinese, and they will point out the mistakes that they make even at a higher level, but also the useful things that they say that you can learn from. So this is really useful if you're learning Chinese. She was unable to make a video for me, but she allowed me to use a clip from one of her videos where she's analyzing Xiao Ma's Chinese.
Hi guys, welcome back to Chinese with 小鹿. I'm going to analyze Xiao Ma's grammar, pronunciation, and intonation.
但是你觉得我自己带的话，你觉得哪个颜色比较漂亮一点
What he said is, 但是你觉得如果我自己带的话，你觉得哪个漂亮一点？但是 he used a 但是 to continue the conversation, but it just sounds a little bit too strong here because in Chinese the part after 但是 is normally contrary to the part before 但是. Here the conversation before he started to speak Chinese. Actually, he was just have a bit chit chat with the street vendor, so nothing really need to use 但是. We as a native speaker probably will use 那 instead of 但是 here to continue the conversation. So the sentence gonna be 那你觉得我自己带的话，那 means in that case or then. I wouldn't say this is a big mistake here, but I think it's better to use 那你觉得我自己带的话，那你觉得我自己带的话 will sound more native.
I think her point is really interesting because most teachers or native speakers won't correct you if you said 但是 instead of 那 or 那 instead of 但是. Maybe you could go years saying something like this and making this tiny mistake, but it's the little things like this that stop you sounding more native. Next we have Chinese Hero to Zero. They're actually one of the few male teachers online which can be useful for guys learning Chinese to emulate their accent and their voices. These guys actually made a series of videos covering common mistakes that beginners make, and they allow me to use them. So here's part of one of them.
Hey guys, welcome back to Chinese Zero to Hero.
Today, we'll look at a very common mistake in Chinese, that is not using the 是 的 construction when called for. First, take a look at this English dialogue. What did you do yesterday? I went to see Mark yesterday. 我昨天去见马克了. When did you see Mark? I went to see Mark yesterday. 我昨天去见马克了. That would be wrong. Why? Because your answer is not what you did, but when you did it. Right? So because your emphasis is on yesterday, I went to see Mark yesterday. So we need to say 我是昨天去见马克的. Because your answer is not what you did, but when you did it. If you need to emphasize on where you did it, when you did it, how you did it, we must make use of the grammatical point we learned in HSK 1, 是的.
The 是的grammar point. It's actually something I learned in my first few months of Chinese. However, I think the Chinese Hero to Zero guys have a real talent for explaining the grammar in a way that Chinese learners can much better understand. There are a lot of things that don't translate well if you use English logic, so the sooner we can break away from using this English way of thinking and move to the Chinese way of thinking, the faster your Chinese will improve. Alright, finally I want to give my own piece of advice. Although I'm not a Chinese teacher, I am a Chinese learner and I have made many mistakes and learned a lot of things on the way. The mistake that I want to point out is a video that I made before on the tones in Chinese. If you haven't seen the video, I'll put a link to the video up here, but in a nutshell, Chinese learners will often separate the word and the tone and treat them as separate things when actually they should be treated as one entity. When you think of a word in Chinese, you should just think of the sound. You shouldn't think of the pinyin and the tone and try and put it together. Definitely go check that video out if you're interested. Alright guys, go check out everybody's YouTube channel and give them some love. Making videos takes a very long time, and all of these teachers are making content for free so that you guys can learn and improve your Chinese. I also want to thank everyone who's subscribed to me and shown me support through likes and comments. I recently hit 2,000 subscribers, which is awesome, and I'm super grateful for that. I hope you enjoyed this video and maybe even learned something. If you did, please hit that like button, leave me a comment and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.